Here we are given such an equation. Now tell me, how is the tan value and the cot value related for any angle alpha? They are the reciprocals of each other, which means if I take my tan alpha to be x, then the cot alpha will be 1 by x, and what they are saying is that both of them added gives 2. So then finding the LCM, cross multiplying, and then bringing all the non-zero terms to one side, you get such an equation. Now that means what? X is equal to 1. But then what was our x? We took tan alpha to be x. That means x is what? Tan value of which angle is 1? The tan value of 45 degrees is 1. So obviously if tan alpha is 1, then what is cot alpha? What is the reciprocal of 1? That is also 1. So if your tan alpha is 1 and your cot alpha is also 1, then what happens to the LHS of this term, the one which we need the answer for? However much you increase it, raised to 220, raised to 550, whatever it is, the answer is still 1. Both the terms added will give you a 2, and that is the answer you are looking for. Here we are given 4 statements related to circles. We need to find which is the incorrect one in this question, not just maths. Watch out for English grammar. Keep an eye on their prepositions. Your on and inside, keep an eye on that. That is what is going to help you. Now what is the first statement say? A chord. A chord joins 2 points on the circle. Is that true? Yes, the points have to be on the circle. They cannot be inside the circle. Please note that. So your first statement is correct. Now we move on to tangents. What is a tangent? It is a line which touches the circle externally at exactly 1 point. I will take 3 points. 1 outside the circle, 1 inside the circle, and 1 on the circle. If your point is outside the circle, then from that point you can draw 2 tangents to a given circle. But then if your point is on the circle, it lies on the circumference, only 1 tangent is possible. But then what if your point is inside the circle? Then absolutely no tangents, 0 tangents, because try drawing it such that it touches it externally. You will see that you will have to bend it. It will not be a line segment. It is not possible if the point is inside the circle. Now do you see which of these statements is wrong? 1 tangent from a point on the circle, correct. But then 2 tangents from a point inside the circle, wrong. So this is our false statement, but anyways we will go to the 4th one also. Now from any point on the circle, as I said, keep an eye on the prepositions, on the circle. From any point on the circle, how many secants can you draw? Any number of secants. What is special about the secants? It has to intersect the circle at 2 distinct points. Do you see that? Yes. Any number of secants is possible from a point on the circle. Now before we go on to our next question, tell me which of these lines is a secant and which one is a tangent. What do you have here? You have a circle here and a point A which is outside the circle. You have 2 line segments. What can you tell me about these line segments? Which one do you think is a tangent and which one do you think is a secant? How will you find that out? If you have any doubts, try extending them. A tangent, even when extended, will touch the circle only at 1 point. However much you extend it, it will touch only at 1 point. But secant, do you see that? Once you have extended, it touches the circle at 2 points. 1 here and 1 here. Here we have a tower OT. We need to find the height of this tower. Now what we are given is 2 points at distances A and B from the foot of the tower, and there is one important information given. This B is less than A. That means this much distance. If I name this point X, then OX will be B and A is greater, right? So A will be further here. If I put this as Y, OY will be A meters, and then from these 2 points X and Y, 2 angles of elevation is given. Somebody standing at these 2 points looking up makes these 2 angle of elevation. Now tell me which one will be bigger angle. Can you guess? Now as you move closer to a tall object, to something which is tall, what do you have to do? You have to keep on bending your head more and more as you go closer and closer, because the top is here. So as you move closer, you have to keep on bending more and more so that you can see its top. But at the same time, when you are here, or suppose you are here, then you don't have to bend your head. You can just look and you will see the top. So the greater angle will be nearer, and this will be 30 degrees. Now what do we have to do? We have to express this H in terms of A and B. Now shall we consider the 2 triangles which will give us the answer? Now first consider the small triangle OXT. We have an angle here 60. This will be its opposite side. This will be its adjacent side. Can you tell me which trigonometric ratio connects the opposite side and the adjacent side? It is the tan value, right? The tan value is opposite side by adjacent side, but then the tan 60 is what? It is root 3, which means what? Root 3 is equal to H by B. Now we move on to the bigger triangle OYT. Again, what angle do you have? You have 30 degrees. For 30 degrees, the opposite side is H, the adjacent side is A. Again, what trigonometric ratio connects the opposite side and the adjacent side? It is again the tan value. But then what is tan 30? It is 1 by root 3. So what do you have? H is equal to A by root 3. Now here we have 2 equations. Now we have got 2 such equations. What we need to find is the value of H, and it should be one of these 3. Now how do we go from this point to this point? Now if you are stuck, just see what is missing here. The root 3 is missing from all the options. So all you have to do is substitute for the root 3. Then what will you get? Here root 3 is H by B, right? So write H by B there. H is equal to So this was the answer that you are looking for. The height of the tower is the square root of AB. Here we need to find the zeros of a quadratic polynomial. We do not know how this polynomial looks like, but we have some interesting information. When you plot this polynomial on a graph, you will find these points lying on that graph. Now just by using this information, can you find out how this quadratic polynomial looks like and what its zeros are? Can we find that? Now here we have a very wonderful way to connect algebra and geometry. If you take a polynomial or its corresponding equation and you plot a graph, you will get a figure. Your geometrical figure depends on the polynomial. If you take a linear equation in 2 variables, your figure will be a wonderful line. If you take a quadratic equation equation in one variable, your figure will be a parabola. Depending on the polynomial, you will get different figures. And that's not all. The zeros of the polynomial correspond with the points where the figure cuts the x-axis. Now, what is special about the points that lie on the x-axis? All of their y coordinates will be 0. Now, it is not asked here, but remember, if your points lie on the y-axis, remember all of their x coordinates will be 0. So to find the zeros of the polynomial, all you have to do is jump to geometry, go to the graph and look out for the points that may lie on the x-axis, or in other words, the points whose y coordinate is 0. How many points do you see here? There are 2 points. There is a -6, 0 and there is a 6, 0. But remember, these are points in the coordinate axis, which means there is an x coordinate and there is a y coordinate. It is an ordered pair. But zeros are single numbers. These two numbers, -6 and 6, are the zeros of the polynomial that we are looking for. Now, these are the zeros of the polynomial, but can you tell me how will this quadratic polynomial look like if it has these zeros? If -6 is a 0, then x plus 6 is its corresponding factor. If 6 is the 0, then x minus 6 is the corresponding factor. Then how will this polynomial look like? Apply a square minus b square formula. This is how your polynomial looks like, but do not forget to add a k here, where k is a constant. What does that mean? There can be millions such quadratic polynomials which have -6 and 6 as its zeros. Why is that? Your k can be 2. Still, it will have -6 and 6 as its roots. It may be 100, it may be 200, or whatever number you can think of. You just put that number here and this whole polynomial will still have the zeros -6 and 6 in the place of x. In the place of x, if you put these two numbers, you will still get 0. So you can get millions of such quadratic polynomials and they will all look like this. There will be a k here, where k is any constant. It can be any number on the earth. So the zeros that you are looking for is this. The polynomial that you are looking for is this. That's all. Here we have a question based on the properties of triangles. There are 2 triangles. Some information about them is given. What we need to first find out is, can we prove a similarity? Are they both similar? Now for that, please remember, when you draw the first triangle, mark the points as you wish. Your A and your B and your C, mark them as you wish. But then when you come to the second triangle, keep an eye on what all is same, what connects both of this. You have angle A and angle E are same, which means the place where you see A, mark E here. And then what is given? The ratio. The ratio of AB and ED. Suppose I name this D, then what do you have? AB is to ED is the same as AC is to EF. Or in other words, we have a ratio which connects these two sides. Now, what all ways can you prove similarity? Now, these are the 4 criteria. One will help us solve this. Now, which one do you think it is? It will be SAS, right? For us to apply the SAS criterion, what all conditions should be satisfied? The ratio of the corresponding sides should be equal. Yes, they are equal. Then the angle angle in between. That means the angle in between these sides, which is angle A here and angle E here, they should be equal. The angle which is contained between these two sides should be equal. Is it equal? Yes, it is equal. So we can very happily apply the SAS criterion, and once you apply it, you will see that both these triangles are what? They are similar. Then what else information are we given? Angle F is 65 degrees. Once these two angles are similar, the way we have drawn them, they are similar, which means if angle F is 65, then angle C is also 65, then that leaves just angle B. How much will angle B be? The sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees, which means what? We are left with a 75 degrees. That is the measure of angle B. Shall we move on to the next question? Here, three numbers A, B and C are given. Their LCM is also given. Now what is the problem? There is an unknown here. What we need to find is the value of N. Now what is the formula for LCM? Now the LCM is given by this formula. Now here LCM is asked, but in case HCF is asked, how does this result change? It changes in these two places. Instead of the highest powers, you will go for the lowest powers, and instead of all prime factors, you need to worry only about common prime factors. Now shall we start solving the question? How many prime factors do you see? There is a 2, there is a 3 and there is a 5. What is the highest power of 2? It is a 3 here, a 1 here, and here it is 0, because you do not see any 2 here, right? So the highest power will be what? It will be 3. What about 3? What is the highest power here? 1 and N. I will put N here. What about 5? It is 0 here. There is no 5 here, no? So its power is 0. 0 here, 1 here, 1 here. So this is how your LCM should look. But what is your LCM? Your LCM looks like this. Now cancel all the like terms, then what do you get? This is how your final equation looks like. What does that mean? Once your bases are same, in an equation if two bases are same, then it means that their exponents is also same. So your n is equal to 2. Here we are given such an AP with the first term 2 and the common difference 5. What we need to find is the difference between these two terms. Now what is the formula for that? The difference between any two terms is given by such a formula. All you have to do is substitute the values. Your M is 5050, your N is 2020, and your D is what? It is 5. Substitute and you will get the answer. But then if you are wondering how we got this formula, then let us have a quick recap. Now the mth term of an AP whose first term is A and the common difference is D is given by such a formula. The nth term is given by such a formula. Open the brackets, then subtract. All the like terms gets cancelled and you are left with what? Then you are left with just this term. That is what we use to solve the problem. That's all. Here we are given a square ABCD and the coordinates of the vertices are given like this. What we need to find is this missing value, the value of P. Now this is the square that we have constructed. Suppose the square is not given, just construct according to this name. This name gives you the entire biodata. This should be how the vertices come in the cyclic order. That means after A, it should be B here. You cannot put C in this place. It should be in this cyclic order. Why is this important? Because if you do not follow this order, then your sides and your diagonals will get jumbled up. So make sure you draw exactly according to this cyclic order. Now, what all properties does a square have? All the four sides are equal, all the four angles are 90 degrees, the diagonals bisect each other perpendicularly. Square has so many wonderful properties, but then we will choose the one which helps us very quickly. We need a quick answer, and which one are we going to choose? The fact that the diagonals bisect each other. What does that mean? The word bisect means cut into two equal parts, which means the DO and OB are equal, which means what? O is the midpoint of DD. Similarly, AO and OC are equal, which means what? O is the midpoint of. So if O is the midpoint of BD, then tell me how will its x coordinate look like? It will be the sum of these two x coordinates divided by 2, which is 3.5. Similarly, what will its y coordinate be? It will be the sum of these two y coordinates by 2, which means what? Again a 3.5. The coordinates of O look like this. I have written both the decimal form and the fraction form. Whichever you are comfortable with, you can choose it. Now, what else do we have? O is also the midpoint of AC, which means what? Its x coordinate is equal to the sum of these two x coordinates divided by 2. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. What about the y coordinate? Y coordinate also same. It is the sum of these two y coordinates divided by 2, which means what? Your P is equal to 6. This is the value that we were looking for. Here we have a question from statistics. The mean of 25 observations is 36. Now, what is the formula for mean? Mean is the sum of observations by the number of observations. Then what is the sum of observations? Cross multiply. So the sum of observations is 900. Now the sum of our 25 observations is 900. All I have done is written down how the middle terms will look like. Your middle terms will look something like this. Now what is happening? The mean of the first 13 terms is given as 32. Again, what is the mean given by? It is the sum of the observations by the number of observations. It is 13 terms, so divided by 13, that is given by 32, which means what? The sum of first 13 terms is given by 13 into 32. Then what else is given? Again, the sum of the last 13 terms, that means this much, is also given. Again, what is the mean? Sum of observations by number of observations, that is given as what? 39. That means the sum of these terms is given by this equation. Now add both the LHS. Then what do you see? You will see that the x13, that means the 13th term or the 13th observation is repeated 2 times. Rest of all is as it is, counted just once. But this x13 is added 2 times. So how do we write that? It is the sum of all the terms as usual and just an x13 added. But then what is the sum of all terms? We found it to be 900. So 900 plus x13. Now what is this equal to? You see both the RHS, add them up, just apply the associative property. Then you get it is 13 into 32 plus 39, which means 13 into 71, which means it is 923. So your 13th term is what? 923 minus 900, which is 23. Now this is the middle term that you were looking for, the 13th term that you were looking for. Here we are given a hemisphere of radius r. What we need to do is fit a cone inside this hemisphere, but it is not any ordinary cone. It must be the biggest cone that can possibly fit into this area, which means you have to make maximum use of the volume available. How big can it be? Now there is only one quantity associated with sphere. It is just the radius, which we know to be r. But then with the cone you have to find two quantities. You have to find its radius, you have to find its height. Now we are talking about maximum volume, stretching it as much as possible. Then what can we do? We can draw the cone also with the same radius. That is the maximum that you can stretch it. So your cone can also have the radius r. What about the height? What is the maximum height possible for a cone so that it will fit inside this hemisphere? Now forget about the hemisphere. Tell me, how will it work in a sphere? In a sphere, what is the longest line that you can draw? It is the diameter. It is the same with the circle. What is the longest chord of a circle called? It is called a diameter. So same with the sphere, the longest line will be the diameter. But here we are not dealing with a sphere, we are dealing with a hemisphere. So the longest line will be half of the diameter, or in other words, what is the half of the diameter? It is the radius. So height also we have to take the radius. So the volume of the cone is given by this formula, but here both the radius and the height are r. So therefore the answer that you are looking for is pi r cube by 3. We are given a circle with two sectors S1 and S2. S1 makes the central angle 120 degrees and S2 makes a central angle of 150 degrees. Central angle just means the angle made at the center. Now suppose A1 and A2 are their respective areas, the area of this whole sector. Now our question is, what is the ratio of A1 by A2? And that will be the same as the ratio of their central angles. That is the answer. End of the story. But why is that so? The area of a sector is given by such a formula where r is the radius of the circle and theta is the central angle. Now how do these two values differ? The only difference in their values comes from the central angle that they make. Pi and 360 is going to be the same. R is going to be the same because they both lie on the same circle. So when you take the ratio, what happens? All the like terms gets cancelled and all you are left with is the ratio of their central angles, which is just 4 by 5. And now I just want to mention something. This is an MCQ question. So you will have a lot of misleading options. You will have something which looks like this also. So please read the question carefully. It is S1 is to S2. Now the size of a sector depends on its central angle. Smaller the central angle, smaller the sector. So what you need is the smaller sector by the bigger sector. So it should be 4 is to 5, not 5 is to 4. So please take care when it comes to MCQ questions. That's all. Assalamu alaikum. In a bag, there are 5 red pens and there are some blue pens. What we need to find is how many blue pens are there. Suppose there are n blue pens. So totally how many pens do we have? We have 5 plus n pens. Now what else is given? The probability of picking up a blue pen is 2 times the probability of picking up a red pen. What does that mean? If from the bag you are going to pick a pen without looking, with your eyes closed, then the chances that you will get a blue pen is 2 times the chances that you may get a red pen. But then it is said that there are 5 red pens, right? So there must be 10 blue pens exactly. That is why you are getting double the chances. But that is what is evident from the question. But how do we put it on paper? What is the result that we will use? Now this is the result that is going to help us. The probability of any event is the number of favorable outcomes by the total number of outcomes. Now what is the total number of outcomes? What is the total ways that this can happen? It can happen in 5 plus n ways. But then picking up a blue pen, what is the favorable case? There are n blue pens. So there are only n ways that it can happen. What about this side? Apply the same formula. What is the number of favorable outcomes for picking a red pen? 5 red pens. So 5 here, same denominator. Total number of outcomes. The total way that this can happen is 5 plus n. Now similar terms, like terms on both denominators, equating the numerators, you get what? N is equal to 10. There are 10 blue pens, but then we already know that answer, don't we?